As Larry Dixon steps in as Morehouse's new men's basketball coach, he has huge shoes to fill that go back not just to the last coach, but over the last past half century. Oh, yeah, it's locked on HBCU. Play my music.
You are Locked On HBCU, your daily podcast covering HBCU sports. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, family? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On HBCU podcast, your number one daily one-stop shop for everything HBCU athletics, Monday through Friday, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I, of course, am Darrion Gray, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, Texas Southern alum and former TSU Herald Sports editor and current site expert at Who Dat Dish and contributing writer at USA Today's Saints Wire. Thank you for going on this journey with me, making Locked On HBCU your first listen of the day every day. And remember, just because the mic cuts off does not mean that the journey is over. It just means it's time to follow me on Twitter at South Exclusives. Starts with an S and ends with an S. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. We'll wrap up today's episode with a look at Morgan Price transferring over to Arkansas and why I think that this is actually, as sad as it is that she's leaving Fisk, I think that this is also a storybook ending for the gymnast. In segment 2, we'll take a look at a few of Tennessee State's new men's basketball recruits, including a big-time guard from the NAIA level. I want to kick this whole episode off, however, with big shoes to fill, because that's what I believe Larry Dixon has as he goes on to be the new Morehouse men's basketball coach. This is a process that does date back to 1965, but I don't want to have the entire conversation be based around 60 years worth of history. Instead, I want to start with the last head coach before Dixon. The last head coach before Dixon was Douglas Whitler. And what Whitler did at Morehouse over the last 4 years, which is the entirety of his stretch, he was there for 4 seasons as the head coach. What he did over those 4 years was extremely impressive, and I would make an argument. I think an argument can be made the opposite, but I would make the argument that from a success standpoint, he should not have been let go. And I think that I have the easier argument to make. Allow me to give you the counterpoint before I go into what I feel. The counterpoint would be Morehouse did not have SIAC tournament success. That would be the counterpoint, and I think that that is valuable. I think that that is a valid argument to have. If you want to say, yeah, Douglas Whitler was doing all of this, but when it came down to it in the tournament, he was not winning. Because Morehouse never made it to a championship game. Obviously, that means they never won a championship. So if you want to say, I understand the success that he had, but at Morehouse, we're looking to win a championship, and we don't think that that could happen, I would be willing to hear you out. Though from the sounds of it, it does not seem as if wins and losses were the deciding factor. That's why I don't think that argument is overly valid, but because I don't have confirmation, I can't dismiss it completely. When I look at what Whitler was able to do over the last 4 seasons, let's go starting at this year and work our way down, work our way back on the timeline. 17-13, 14-7 in the conference, 20-10, 16-5 in the conference, 18-10, 14-7 in the conference, 21-7, 15-2 on the conference. That was his first year, and it featured a school record 18 wins in a row. So you're looking at a guy who came out the gate extremely strong. You're looking at a coach who consistently had quality squads. That's 17 victories, 20 victories, 18 victories, 21 victories. Over 4 seasons, you had multiple 21 years. Yeah, give me that anytime. That's just the problem is just opening round. Or excuse me, the tournament. And in the opening round, you get a win. Or they skipped the opening round often. So they were more so in the quarterfinals. And then when it came to playing in the semis, you're done for. And if I'm going to take it to my sport, which is football, if you're a number 1 seed and you get a bye and you fall short in that divisional round, yes, you made it to the second round of the playoffs, but we're not impressed. I would argue if you have a bye, you make it to the conference championship game and then you lose there. A lot of times we're not impressed because it's not as if you won 2 games to get there. You won one. Did you win the more difficult game than if you were a wild card? Yes, you did. But at the same time, you don't have a lot of postseason success. If I am the number one seed over and over and over and over, but I only win 1 game in the playoffs, it doesn't matter if it gets me to the conference championship. Yeah, that might go underneath my resume. But when you start to look at it under a microscope, it looks a little different. So though I really do enjoy what Whitler was able to put out on the floor, and I think he consistently put out good teams, I do think that there was one fatal flaw. Once again, from what I hear, it didn't seem to be an on the court issue. It seemed to be so many other aspects of the game or of the situation that it eventually led to him leaving Morehouse. Those circumstances right there, people love Douglas Whitler. People really did because he was a Morehouse man through and through, graduated from Morehouse, came up the ranks, coached at Morehouse now. This was somebody who people were rooting for. And from all intents and purposes, I was reading this article from Kyle T. Mosley, a fellow Morehouse alum, fellow Morehouse man. And he writes for HBCU Legends. If you guys haven't checked that out, it's pretty good. There was a lot of respect for Whitler in the community amongst the alums. And beyond just him being one of them, he fully invested in making more Morehouse men. And that's the thing is my friend, one of my closest friends, he went to Morehouse, and I know how they operate. I know how they how they connect. I know about the fellowship. Like I understand that a little bit. So I get why imparting wisdom, why mentoring the next class of Morehouse men was always so important for that alumni base. And you had Whitler who was doing it. So that's already going to be difficult. And then I was reading a little bit more. HBCU Game Day threw out what I thought was a really good fact around the hiring. See, we talked about the firing a little bit, but when looking at the hiring, Larry Dixon is the first head coach of Morehouse to not be connected to Arthur McAfee or B. McAfee himself since 1965. Since 1965, you were coached by Arthur McAfee or you were on that lineage. And that is a powerful statement. That is legacy. So when we talk about moving on to Larry Dixon, it's not just about replacing a coach who had a really good track record with you over the last 4 years. It's also stepping away from legacy. It's stepping away from tradition. It's stepping away from the typical process that we've seen Morehouse operate with since 1965. We're talking about 60 years ago. We are talking about 60 years of the McAfee tree at Morehouse that is no longer, has been broken, I'll say, by the hire of Larry Dixon. That's interesting to me because that makes it a doubly impactful move. It's interesting to me because you have 60 years of history that you're stepping away with, and you have a very successful head coach that you're stepping away from. It's not often that you get that type of consistency. It's not often that you have that type of philosophy. You're changing everything now. 60 years of the McAfee tree, you have different tweaks. You know, this guy may look at it this way. This guy may look at it that way. We may want to call it this. We may want to transfer. But overall, people that spoke the same language for over a half century at Morehouse men's basketball. You've been able to come in and say, okay, I'm going to bring this guy who played in the 90s because we're speaking the same language in the 2010s. I can bring this guy from the 2015 roster and he can be on my 2024 coaching staff because I know that he learned it the same way I learned it, so he can vocalize it in the same way that I vocalize it. That's gone now. That long-standing tradition allowed you to go get anybody from the past and bring them in, and it would feel like the expectation would be that it'd be a seamless transition into coaching. And you talking about recruiting. Oh, this is I like how they operate in Morehouse because of this. 60 years of knowing how you operate is a long time. Eventually that was going to be broken, and 2025 to 2026 is going to be the season in which they break it. But Douglas Whitler had a really good run, man. He had 4 years. 2 of those were 21 seasons. I'm excited. I'm excited about what comes next, but this is a deep restart. It's a deep restart and it's big shoes to fill. I'll say this. Normally, I don't think that expectations for coaches to succeed in year one are fair. I don't, because you have to get your feet underneath you. You have to get your team together, your coaching staff together, recruiting. It's a lot of things on why I don't think expectations are fair for year one. Unfortunately for Larry Dixon, Morehouse has created a situation in which you will have expectations that I think are fair. I have been successful for 4 years with Douglas Whitler. I didn't want to move on from Douglas Whitler, excuse me. And now I have a parting of ways that really just, seems like it was just phrased in a good way. But if I've had 4 good years with Douglas Whitler, you part ways with him. I ain't really want to go nowhere. I didn't want Whitler to leave, but he's gone. I'm expecting the next coach to deliver. There is no, we're going to be bottom of the barrel for a year. There's no patience for that. There is no, we're not going to be competitive at the top of the SIAC East. We're not used to that. We've had 4 years of quality seasons, no less than 17 victories in a season, 220-win seasons. That's what we're used to at Morehouse in recent history. And we didn't want to get rid of the coach who led us to that. But now we have you, so we expect you to be good immediately because we have expectations as a program now. For me, that's just the way that I view it, and I think that the expectations are warranted. This is one of the times when I step away from my typical stance. As we push forward, I want to talk about a couple of recruits that Tennessee State men's basketball is bringing in, including a big-time guard from the NAIA level. Let's talk about that as we continue with Locked On HBCU. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time, and the NBA playoffs are reaching the conference finals. Minnesota has punched their ticket. Indiana has punched their ticket. So if you stay in Indianapolis or if you stay in Minneapolis, then you can go ahead and buy your tickets to those games. Or maybe you just want to go ahead and fly in. You know that Minnesota's going to have a game. You know that Indiana's going to have a game. It's just about who are they facing. New York versus Boston. Well, yeah, I'm recording this right now, so that game won't happen yet. New York versus Boston. You have OKC versus Denver. That one's the real toss-up. But maybe basketball just isn't your thing. Like maybe that's not what you're looking forward to going to see. You want to go see ballet? You want to go see concerts? You want to go see theater plays? You want to see comedy shows? All of that is available to you. So download the Game Time app or use GameTime.com. And if you're new, use the code LOCKEDONCollege. You get $20 off your first purchase. Go ahead and do that today. As we continue rolling on today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day. For your second listen, make sure you're checking out Locked On NFL for the biggest news around the best league in the USA. So go ahead and check out Locked On NFL today. I want to break down a couple of players that Tennessee State has brought in on their 6-man recruiting class. It was an even split of guards and forwards. You had 3 guards, 3 forwards. I had to do the math real quick. I don't know. I had a brain fart real quick. But yeah, so I want to highlight 3 players. 1 guard, 2 forwards. That's the reason I had a brain fart. I was about to say 2 and 2. And that didn't sound right to me because it wasn't right. But I want to talk about, first off, Jaybrion Spikes, who is the guard. And then we'll follow that up with Joe Ayo and then Yvens LaFleur. But we're going to talk about the guard first. And I think that Spikes is the one that interests me the most because he comes over from Georgetown College. That's an NAIA program, but he was there for 3 years. So he's very experienced and he understands how to operate. And I think that he should come in with a veteran presence. He's going to be here for a year. Excuse me. Even though with the I don't know, man. The way that these rules are going, I don't know at what point are we just going to cancel out NAIA and JUCO years of eligibility. We really need some sort of rein, or we need to pull the reins back on that one because I'm just not a fan. But anyway, I'm getting off base. Spikes comes over to Tennessee State with 3 years of experience, and I expect him to come in year 1 and be a leader. If that is his personality to be a leader, I expect him to come in and do that because he's going to be an older guy. I expect him to come in and be an impact player immediately because now that's what you are expecting. Now, whether he's going to be a leader or not, that's a different conversation. But He is supposed to come in and be an instant impact player. Excuse me. And you see steady improvement, especially in the scoring department. He goes from 6.3 to 11.2 to 13 even. That's just on a yearly basis. And as you see his numbers rise, his role rises as well. So the first year, he barely started any games. The second year, he started, I think, maybe about half the games. And then in the year 3, he starts nearly all of the games. I think they had 34 games and he started 31. So you're looking at a primary starter. Every single year, Jaybrion Spikes has leveled up his role and he's leveled up his scoring output. Now, instead of going up in role at Georgetown College, he's going to go up in subdivision. And he should be a starter if everything turns out well for him. The next question is he able to up his numbers? Is he able to go from 13 even to 14, 15? Is he able to do that? We'll see. And I think that that'll be one of the more interesting things to watch. Does he just remain a double-digit scorer? This is what Coach Penny Collins had to say about Spikes. Jaybrion is a tough, physical-minded guard who played for one of the top NAIA teams in the country last year. He's a proven winner, and his vocal leadership and defensive intensity are his strongest assets. Spikes brings valuable experience that will be crucial in our backcourt. So you have right there that answer about his leadership ability. That's what he is. And as a older guy, even though he's stepping into a new arena, so to speak, this is the point in which you become a natural leader. Then next thing you have is LaFleur. And LaFleur is going to be a big post presence for Tennessee State. That's what he was. You want to talk about improvements? You want to talk about improvements over the last couple of years? He's had 2 years at the JUCO level, and LaFleur made huge strides from freshman to sophomore seasons. He ended his JUCO career last year as a 14-9 player. That's good. You're almost averaging the double-double. And in his sophomore season, he was much more of an active presence offensively. It's actually a dramatic increase. It makes you wonder what was the notion. He was getting more rebounds, so you're probably putting up more shots right away. But LaFleur went from 50 shots as a freshman to 350 as a sophomore. That's a huge difference. That is a huge leap. That is a change in offensive mindset, mentality, philosophy. Like, it's just an all-around change. So he did lead the team in rebounds as well, and he's coming off of a Defensive Player of the Year season. So I don't know how aggressive he'll be at Tennessee State on the boards, or excuse me, with putting up shots. But as far as being on the boards, it's going to be a lot of activity that hopefully leads to offensive shots, because we have to get offensive rebounds to put those back up. But I think that he's going to be a post presence instantly because he led the country in blocks. So you know what he can be. This is what Coach Collins said about LaFleur. I love what LaFleur brings as a rim protector and a finisher. He led the country in blocks at the JUCO level, and we expect him to come in and make the same impact here. His infectious energy will be a major boost to our locker room. So you're already seeing one thing I did notice that I didn't mention in my notes is that with Spikes, you have a guy who they're talking about being a leader. And he's talking about vocal leadership, defensive intensity, his strong assets. Well, when I look at LaFleur, you're talking about infectious energy and then also being a guy who gets blocks. Both of those are big-time defensive moves and energy. So you're talking about culture and on the court. That's what I really do like about these moves. Lastly, you'll be looking at it's interesting to see how they're going to use Joe Ayo. It's interesting how they're going to use him, because Ayo is a forward. He's lighter than the other guys, so he's going to play a different role. But he did have 31 blocks. So while LaFleur is going to be the person that we look at as being the rim protector, 100%, this is not to question that role. I also think that Ayo has a room as a shot blocker that makes me wonder, will they use him down low occasionally? Maybe they're playing small ball, decide, all right, we won't put this 6'9" guy at a 4. I don't know. But the point is, Ayo has some hidden ability as a shot blocker that I wonder if they'll channel into. Like, he went from 7 blocks last year, or 7 blocks his first year at Kentucky State, and then he went to 26 this last year. And yes, he did play more games, or 31. But if you go off averages, he improved from 7 to 31. on 14 to 26 games. So you're going from averaging half a block a game to averaging more than one block per game. So that's a very important note. And he also was more active as far as being a 3-point shooter. As being a 3-point shooter, his percentage dropped a little bit, but this is also a player who took way more threes and it didn't drop a lot. So you kind of expected a dip. If you go from shooting barely any threes to shooting a medium amount, your percentage is probably going to drop more times than it isn't. Here's what Coach Collins had to say about Ayo. Joe is a long-rangey athlete who brings valuable experience to our roster. He's a proven performer, and we expect him to make an immediate impact. So we're not necessarily talking about the same intangibles as these other guys, not as much specification when talking about what they expect from him. Just he's a proven performer. But when it came to Spikes and when it came to LaFleur, I love that we're talking about guys who can impact the culture and guys who can impact the court as well. Those are two C's that are very important in the game of basketball. And you have two recruits out of the six who are going to be big time, impactful players in two of those areas. Now, as you push forward, I want to look at the decision by Morgan Price to go to Arkansas. It's obvious, but it's also very interesting. And I think it's a storybook ending. We'll break all of that down as we wrap up today's episode of Locked On HBCU. The days are getting longer. The weather's warming up out here in Texas. It's getting to that time. It's getting to that temperature. So people want to spend time outside. Okay, cool. But maybe you don't want to go straight to the park. You want to get yourself a little bit of shade. You're still on your balcony. But no balcony is complete without Wayfair furniture. It doesn't matter what your vibe is. Wayfair has it for everybody. Their massive selection of outdoor essentials makes it easy to transform any space into your ideal summer setup. From a comfy conversation set to sleek dining tables and outdoor decor, they've got it all, and prices that fit within your budget. Grab yourself a patio dining set. Go ahead and have some time to eat outside with your partner or with your family. All I know is that for me, I'm shopping from a huge selection of outdoor furniture online this summer. And you know what? Get outside with Wayfair. Head to wayfair.com right now. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. As we're wrapping up today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day, making it all the way to segment 3, and I thank you 2 times for that. Thank you. Thank you. We're not going to be long about this. Morgan Price has transferred to Arkansas, and this is a move that it actually looks pretty obvious. I'm going to be honest with you. It's actually pretty obvious that she would transfer to Arkansas, mostly because her sister is there. But I said, Arkansas, I swear that's where she was. So I did a lot of looking, and that is. Morgan Price was previously committed to Arkansas. I'm sorry for this creaky chair, guys. I hope that is not too loud on the microphone. But Morgan Price was originally committed to Arkansas before decommitting and then joining Fisk. I think that what she's doing right now, it actually makes me wonder, was this I don't want to say a plan, but was this something that they had constantly thought of? Because it was just so perfect. It was so perfect. I don't think that if Frankie Price, Morgan's sister, if Frankie wasn't going to come to Fisk, this was literally the best story you could have written for Morgan's career. Morgan Price spent 3 years living up to every single expectation that had ever been placed upon her at Fisk. She came in, was the face of Fisk. She was the best gymnast. She was the face on national programming. She was the face and voice and prime athlete at Fisk University for their gymnastics team, something that didn't exist before her, and she was a part of that inaugural recruiting class. You come in and you win national championships. You are decorated. You are respected. You're hitting, I think she's a 9.9 or above on every single event. National champion, like I said, has won the all around. She's done a lot at Fisk University, and she's already cemented her status as a legend. There's no question about it. I think she's already in the Tennessee Hall of Fame. So you're talking about an athlete. You're talking about an athlete who is decorated, accomplished, and cemented. What else is there for her to do at Fisk? I don't know. I don't know what else there is for her to do at Fisk University. But she gets to go to Arkansas now and compete with her sister. And I think that that is a great thing for her. That is what I mean when I say that this is a storybook ending through and through. This is not a situation that you can go get elsewhere. It isn't. This is something that you had to honestly make happen. And it's almost like you wrote it, which is why I think that they kind of talked about this. I don't know what she wanted to accomplish at Fisk first. I think that going there was an accomplishment in and of itself. Having the success she had while she was there was an accomplishment in and of itself. But at the same time, getting the opportunity to play with your sister is different. And I don't think it can be compared to. I don't say play, compete with your sister. Be a part of the team. See, Frankie Price was already there before Morgan Price entered college, but Frankie did redshirt a season. So because she redshirted in her freshman year, now they started using their eligibility at the same time. Morgan went in instantly. She competed, right? So she had a true freshman. She's a true senior. Frankie is going to be a redshirt senior. But either way, they get to spend their last year of eligibility on a team together. Storybook, I'm happy for. I stand on this. I still think that Morgan Price has the same impact, if not a greater impact on her sport than the departure of Deion Sanders had on HBCU football. I'm serious. I'm serious when I say that. But anyway, I'm not going to go deep into it because it doesn't really matter anymore. But this is the end of our week. I don't know what we're going to talk about Monday, man. It's getting to that point of the season where less and less is happening. Less and less is happening. But anyway, in the meantime, in between time, until the next time that we hear each other, family, take care, stay blessed. Peace.